Hello.
Hi. No, it's okay.
My name is Doreen Moracha.
Yeah.
I am a digital content creator. I'm a HIV advocate.
Yeah.
Well, I prefer I'm a health advocate who majorly works around HIV and SRH. Yeah.
Yeah. So Doreen, you work mostly with the adolescent people and people in the vulnerable in the community. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us why did you choose this particular demographic of people?
Well, it's not really me choosing. It's basically because when I'm a person who is living with HIV, and I've lived with HIV my whole life. So it's more of came naturally because I belong to that group and I've grown up and transitioned through the different stages of adulthood and growing up. So it just kind of made itself. Like it's not something I chose. It was just part of my path as I'm growing up. Yeah.
So mostly maybe you got infected when you are at your most adolescent stage, or is it?
Sorry.
You got vulnerable. You got this particular disease when you are mostly at the vulnerable adolescent age.
No. I was born with HIV.
Oh, you were born with
Yes.
HIV. And what are some of the issues or some of the things that have made the young and the adolescent more vulnerable to this particular disease than any other demographic group? Yeah.
Well, there are different risk factors because getting HIV, there's sexual ways and non-sexual ways. So when it comes to the sexual ways, there is issue around sexual and gender-based violence. There is the whole aspect of especially for adolescent girls and young women, not being in a position to negotiate for safe sex. So socioeconomic issues come along. There is also the whole aspect of being born with HIV, because when a child is born with HIV, they grow up with HIV. So you find that it's a huge demographic that is, even now in 2025, we still have children being born with HIV. So as they grow up, at one point they're going to be adolescents and it's going to be a risk factor. Some of them are not undetectable because most adolescents just, I think because of the drug, taking daily pills, it just takes a toll on them, on their mental health. So infection rates amongst each other also becomes high because they're not undetectable. So obviously they're able to transmit HIV to each other. Then there's the whole aspect of for persons who inject drugs. When you look at the groups of adolescents and young people, drug and substance abuse is still high in that demographic. So if they don't get HIV through the drugs put them at a vulnerable position of sexually getting HIV. So it's the lifestyle, it's the part where there is that unfriendliness also of them not being able to seek medication. For example, we have prevention medication such as PrEP. We also have PEP for the after, but still, because some of them find it very hectic going to hospitals, and also at the hospital level, the healthcare workers who are not very friendly. They're not young people friendly. So a 16-year-old walking into a clinic to seek for PrEP or for PEP, they're going to be asked, why are you here? What did you come to do? Why do you need PrEP? Because we're assuming people who have sex are above 18. But we do have 10-year-olds having sex. That means that they're at risk of getting HIV. So what is being done to prevent them? So that is the whole reason why there's so many issues among adolescents and young people that put them at risk, and they are leading into them carrying a huge chunk of the epidemic and the burden of the epidemic.
Yeah. So there is a young girl maybe who is watching you and she's feeling you. She just realized maybe she can't see you are a person living with HIV, and maybe she is in a depressed state. Yeah? Can you tell us what are some of these feelings or some of these what do I call them? what are some of these discriminatory terms that people maybe use and they don't know about them, you know what, and they usually affect you or a person living with HIV, and you love you to feel like you should create awareness, because people are at the adolescent, they are very sensitive. They are very sensitive. One thing you tell them, they are like, you know what, this person maybe is talking to me in a particular way. Can you tell us, educate us, give us information? What are some of those discriminatory or things that you feel like, you know what, people take for granted, but they really affect people living with the status of HIV and AIDS?
So I'm going to start by referring to UNAIDS and the International AIDS Society. Yeah. So they do have something called People First language. So People First language is a language that humanizes people living with HIV to be talked to in dignity, with respect, because they, at the end of the day, the H in HIV stands for human. So it's human beings who live with HIV. So unfortunately, part of the stigma comes from the language. And as you've said, that adolescents are very sensitive towards what language is used to address them. So most of the times, we see people calling people living with HIV victims. Victims is a discriminatory word. Calling them patients.
Which one do you prefer? Can you give us like...
I want to first of all tell you the ones that are there that we don't like, and then yes. Yeah. So we see people saying HIV patients. We do see people saying HIV infected. Those are not nice words. They are words that are, let me say, disrespectful towards people living with HIV. So when it comes to people living with HIV, just call them people or persons living with HIV. There is no in between. Because it puts the person first and then leaving the pandemic next. So when you call them like victims, it means there's some sort of problem going on there. So at the end of the day, you end up finding that when you're using these words, in sometimes even in the Swahili sense, you do hear people say watu ni wagonjwa kuinje. You do hear people use,
and it makes them wanajificha.
Exactly, because when you say, even me, if you tell me such a thing that people are sick out here, I am obviously going to be offended, because what do you mean people are sick out here? There are so many sicknesses, but in that specific term refers to either people who have STIs or people who are living with HIV. And that ideally just takes away the aspect that these are people-related diseases, and at the end of the day, it's people who are going to get them. But it's also how we treat people who have different STIs or people who are living with HIV in the dignity, because I think it's because we've also demonized sex so much. So we look at, the society majorly feels that sex is this very unclean act. So when the funny part is everybody basically has sex. Exactly. The weird part is how we demonize it, and we're like, no, so you got HIV through sex, so you were sleeping with 75 other partners. You do not need 75 partners to give you HIV. It's just one person who is infected with HIV and not on their treatment. So, and if they are on their treatment, not yet virally suppressed. But a person who is virally suppressed, who is taking their treatment well, according to science on U equals U, they are not going to transmit HIV to the other person. So we need, by ensuring people first language, reducing stigma around HIV, we then dignify the person living with HIV, and they're able to take their medication without stigma, because we do have the external stigma and the internal stigma, but the external stigma kind of fuels the internal stigma.
Definitely. So can you tell us, have you ever faced discrimination because of your status, you yourself?
Yes, I have.
Are you ready to share maybe one with us for educational purposes?
Well, I have, the first stigma I faced was from my family members. So back in the day, because there was, when HIV was still very new, and there was a lot happening, and a lot of people did not understand HIV as a pandemic, they did used to give me my own utensils, my own set of utensils. They will be disinfected after I used them. Same thing as my clothes. They used to disinfect my clothes and wash them then. So it was like that. But now, that time they were doing that, I didn't even know that I was HIV positive because they had not told me yet. But now when I also started publicly living with HIV, I have faced discrimination and stigma from one point or another. And now, because I'm more accepting of my status, I really look at the person like, I don't understand why you will treat me as less of an individual because I'm HIV positive. And I think most people refuse to realize the fact that people living with HIV are right in our households. They're our friends, they're our partners, they're our colleagues, they're our neighbors. They're literally people you know. It's just that maybe you don't know their diagnosis, but you know them on a personal level. So most of the times, I look at how people will be so weird that now I'm HIV positive, and somebody will come, leave a mean comment on my comment section. Somebody will just say something very random. Like, I've been called names, especially with social media, where people think they have the power because they have a phone and the internet connection. I have been called names, but most of the time I'm like, you know what? It's really not about you calling me names. It's the fact that there's somebody living with HIV very near you. You don't know them, but this person probably follows my page, and they come and see what their relatives tell me on my comment section.
Some even are hiding profile pictures. You're wondering if you are brave enough.
I see recently with the whole funding situation that is happening, somebody came and left a comment on my comment section, and they were like, "Trump is coming for you guys." And I told them, the thing is, it's not me, it's also your friends and loved ones. So it's all of us. So there is that whole situation that sometimes people look at me because I'm publicly living with HIV, I'm loud about it, I don't care about being HIV positive, and they feel like then they are somehow, for HIV is not going to catch them. And some people who don't even know my story will be like, so did you go and have sex out there, now you're busy telling us that you're living with HIV and all that. Like, I've been told mean things, and sometimes I'm just like, if this person was brave enough, they would actually not tell me this to my face. But now, because they are hiding behind that profile, they feel like they have that power. So,
Exactly. And please share with us, because maybe we met at this particular conference where it is a women in HIV a conference. Tell us, what role were you playing in this particular conference, and what empowerment did you come to give to this particular forum?
So I didn't come to give empowerment. These are empowered people.
Already.
So I am part of the organizing committee, and I am also supporting them on social media. So that is why. So this year I was not doing any...
I saw you present yesterday.
No, I was not presenting. I was just doing part of my organizing committee duties.
It's okay, but it's okay. But what I wanted now, as we come to a conclusion, you talked about people are telling you that Trump is coming for you. Are you afraid of the US cutting out funding for people living with persons living with HIV in terms of helping them get medication? Are you worried?
Yeah, slightly. And as a person living with HIV, it's valid that I would be worried that funding has been cut. And it's not just about the money, because it's one thing to cut funding around the programs and all that, but it is another thing to cut medication, because this is a lifelong illness. It is manageable through ARVs. So when you're cutting the medication, it means you're cutting people's lives. So that is worrying, because then we live in a country that does not even buy its own ARVs. So then what happens? Where do we go from here? How do we get treatment? People are worried. There are mothers who are pregnant, who are expecting children. There are mothers who are breastfeeding. They're expecting the children to turn out HIV negative. Kenya has made a commitment of ending AIDS in children by 2027. 2027 is next year, but when?
It's the day for elections.
So you see, when they made such a commitment, and that commitment is just in words, and we are not seeing them buying medication to prevent HIV among babies, because the babies need their prophylaxis medication to turn out HIV negative. We are not seeing them right now making a commitment of buying ARVs. We are not seeing them making collaboratory efforts in terms of their countries that, like South Africa, makes their own ARVs. Why can't we partner with South Africa and tell them, hey, here is $1 billion Kenya shillings, or 10 billion, add your production, supply to Kenya. So Kenya, I'm seeing Kenya say, oh, we want to manufacture our own ARVs. Remember, people, the lives of people living in HIV.
Before research is
exact.
done.
No, we have the patents and everything, but you see, we have to build from scratch. So by the time, instead of building from scratch, why can't we partner with people who already have the facilities, people who already have they already ready. So we just give them money and they give us medication, because they have a way of making medication. Because our lives are not going to stop. You see, our lives are not going to stop that, okay, now let us relax and wait for when the factory is finally set up and the processes of money have gone through parliament and
government,
treasury. You see, our lives are not going to stop, because every single day new HIV infections are happening. Every single day people are dying from AIDS-related illnesses. So life is not going to stop and wait for us to manufacture ARVs. So we need to think very smartly at this going forward. How are we raising our own money? How are we able to procure ARVs at a cheaper price for ourselves? Because I have told you, in as much as we have very beautiful programs that even target specific populations, specific people, right now the top priority is medication, and that is currently threatened. And it's not just for HIV, it's also for TB and malaria. And we all know that TB is another issue that we don't talk much about. And it's if TB is left unmanageable, it definitely does take people's lives. So what happens with that?
Do you think it's an issue of lack of goodwill or a lack of resources?
No, it is lack of goodwill. Resources, we have resources. When you look at the money flying around, we have resources. What we don't have is the goodwill. We have never had the goodwill for 40 years that Kenya has had HIV. We have not had the goodwill. And it's we should have had the goodwill like yesterday, but maybe it's a good time to start even today.
They say that the best time to start was yesterday, but the best time is now. With that now, I would like you to maybe give us your call for action. What is your call for action as we come to a conclusion?
Well, first of all is I have seen a lot of things happening, especially with this time when funding has been threatened and everything. I've seen stigma come up. And I would like to tell people, the government is not going to end stigma. It is us who are going to end stigma, because at the end of the day, stigma is not a disease. It's a disease we created in our minds that I'm going to look at you and decide that I'm treating you negatively because you're HIV positive. So it's for us, first of all, to heal the stigma around society. Because I keep hearing people calling out the government and saying, the government has to bring back those campaigns and ads that used to be, but but we don't need the government. It is us. How do we treat each other? First of all. Second of all, we really need the political goodwill and the money to buy medication, like to just have a very clear, very specific need to buy our own treatment. As we are looking into manufacturing, let us start. But then again, I hear that Kenya does manufacture ARVs that are taken abroad. So maybe they want to expand that plant. That is still a good thing. I don't know. So and then I want, but for the people living with HIV, don't panic. Relax. We have been through tough times. We have seen bad things. We can always, the thing is, in as much as we've lost you as a partner, and it was a big partner, we can still always get other partners who are willing to support in one way or another. So we are going to be fine. So don't panic and don't stop taking a treatment, because a lot of people at this point are like, so what is the point of not taking treatment? Actually, there's somebody who sent me a DM on TikTok and they were like, I'm going to unalive myself because now there is no need of living if there is no treatment. So those are the kind of things that I want us to relax about. You just go to hospital. If they give you medication for 1 month, it is fine. You just focus on that 1 month. Month 2 will take care of itself. So yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Doreen.
You're welcome.
And continue doing the great work that you are doing.
Okay.
And I hope to see more of you like amplifying the voices of the people, of the persons living with HIV. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate.
Tunaona, tunasikia na tutabonga. The voice.